Femi, hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is Blair right? Should we do a different deal with the EU on immigration and then have a second referendum?
His point, one of the points he was making today was that we can address immigration better while still remaining in the EU. And one of the issues with immigration is the fact that the government simply hasn't been, living up to its promises. It said it would control immigration, but it hasn't. And then you've got to ask why. What tools does it have at its disposal to control immigration? And you think that it's the EU that has this open border policy that's letting in everybody. But I'm reading right here Article 7 of the EU Citizens' Rights Directive, which says that in order to come here without a job, you need to have sufficient resources to not become a burden on the social assistance system of the host country, or have comprehensive medical insurance.
Yeah, it's theory and practice, isn't it? It's theory and practice.
Yeah, it's in theory and practice, but then you've got to ask yourself, if the government hasn't been implementing EU-made restrictions on immigration, then who should we be blaming? Should we be blaming the EU or should we be blaming the government?
Well, what about blaming Tony Blair? What about blaming the very person who today is suggesting things can be done differently? He's the guy that opened it all up, in every way, and not just, Femi, to the EU. He did it to the whole world as well, because he wanted to fundamentally change British society. Well, I suppose he succeeded with that. Femi, in theory, you're right. In theory, under European treaties, there are restrictions that can be placed, but the truth is hardly anybody does.
That's true, but then is the answer Brexit? Is the answer to leave the very institution that's putting in place the restrictions that we need? Or is the answer to basically give more power to the government that hasn't been implementing restrictions? In fact, logically speaking, if the EU has restrictions on immigration and the UK hasn't been implementing them, leaving the EU would mean more immigration.